Alright, so I know this is a little late as the Bulls season ended, a couple weeks ago, and I know a lot of media outlets have already come out with their season-ending player grades, but as most of you know, I've got a brand new baby which has taken up a good amount of my time, so it's why I'm a little behind on some of these videos that I would otherwise have made much earlier. But either way, I've put it together. Now I know some outlets have done individual player grades per video, but I'm going to put it all together into one. I'm going to be including the results of the season end grades from your guys' votes as well from the Discord, and if you would like to join the Discord, the link to that can be found in the description. It's free to join and a great place to talk Bulls basketball with the community. But with that being said, let's get into some of these grades, shall we? So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now a quick call out when going through these grades, which is very similar to how I've approached these grades in the past, but the method I use is really to calculate the players based on their expectations versus how they perform for the season relative to those expectations. So as an example, if I give Javonte Green an A for the year, but I give Lonzo Ball a B, it does not mean that I think Javonte is a better player than Lonzo, but rather how a player performed relative to their expectations, and also their availability and how reliable they were game by game, how consistent they were as a player, and of course their overall impact in contributing to wins to the team. So in no particular order, starting with the starting lineup, or at least what was supposed to be the starting lineup for the season anyway, let's go with DeMar DeRozan. Now for some of these players, I'm not going to spend too much time on them. Well, for one, because they're pretty obvious to me, and DeMar is one of those obvious grades, and he, to me, is without question an A. When you look at the body of work he was able to achieve this season, putting up a career high in scoring, averaging near 28 points per game on over 50% shooting, and on insane efficiency from the mid-range, the highest efficiency in the league from the mid-range, also scoring the most two-pointers in the league. DeMar also shot 35% from three, which was one of the best percentages he's had from three in his career, which is very high for DeMar. I know it's not very high for the rest of the NBA, but for him, three-point shooting at 35% on near 2 attempts per game is pretty decent. The clutch factor also being one of the leaders in points scored in the fourth quarter, as well as clutch time, back-to-back game winners. He beat Wilt Chamberlain's standing record that was set from the 60s for putting up 8 consecutive games scoring 35 plus points on 50% shooting, which is insane because, first of all, it's Wilt Chamberlain. Second, that record has been set since the 60s. And finally, Wilt did that in an era where the 3 seconds in the key didn't exist, and most of the buckets scored were within 4 feet of the rim, while DeMar was putting up 10 to 15-foot jumpers doing this. DeMar also helped lead the Bulls to having a winning record for the first time since 2015 and bringing the Bulls back to the playoffs since 2017. So yes, an A for DeMar DeRozan, and most of you agreed in the Discord as well. 88 A's and 8 B's. You can ignore the single vote for C, D, and F because you have to have at least one vote in the poll to include each letter. A little surprised we had that many B's because I really don't see how you can give DeMar a B based on the season he had. Despite the fall at the end of the season, the guy still deserves an A grade. Next, let's do Lonzo Ball. This is a hard one to grade because while Lonzo was playing, he was great and a very impactful player that led to the early success for the Bulls with his hard-nosed defense, his playmaking, and three-point shooting, all things the Bulls greatly missed after he went down. And of course, you saw how much they fell off once Lonzo was out of the lineup. But I've always said availability is the most important factor when assessing a player's season, and because Lonzo missed more than half of the year, which yes, I understand is out of his control and it's not really fair to grade him based on his injury, but the fact of the matter is he missed a lot of time and it greatly impacted the team, and we just gave him a big contract to come in and be our starting point guard. I gave Lonzo a B because he was a solid player when he did play, but again, he only played 35 games of the available 82 games of the season. Had he played most of the season and kept up the same play that we saw at the beginning of the year, yes, I would have given him an A, but playing in less than 50% of the games this year brought that down. The Discord felt a little differently in that he received 69 A's, 21 B's, and 4 C's. C's is a bit harsh. Lonzo was better than that. Next, let's do Zach LaVine. This was an interesting one because I think when you think of Zach LaVine and you look at his numbers and the fact that he was an all-star yet again this year, you would assume Zach LaVine is an A, easy, right? Like Lonzo, I had a hard time on grading Zach because on one hand, he's one of the Bulls' best players. He's a top player in the league. He's an incredible athlete and scorer. That being said, though, his defense this season was a big liability, especially when the Bulls greatly needed him to step it up on the defensive end when guys like Lonzo and Caruso were out. Not only that, but Zach's decision-making, especially late in game and especially in the second half of the season, was just not good. Again, I know people don't like hearing that, but I'm always going to be keeping it honest with my views on this team. And I know that Zach was injured, which obviously impacted his play overall, but pain in your knee shouldn't impact your basketball IQ. It shouldn't impact your overall decision making on the court. And there were so many late game situations in the second half of the season where Zach would take ill-advised shots in late game situations, contested deep shots with other guys on the floor wide open, or hoisting up a deep three in transition when nobody was under the basket to rebound. You can't blame that on his injury. That's just not smart basketball. All around, though, I still think Zach had a good season. I mean, without Zach, the Bulls don't win as many games as they did. They likely don't finish with the 6th seed, and the Bulls wouldn't have been an exciting, dominant team on offense without him. Thus, I gave Zach a B. I wanted to give him an A, but relative to his expectations and really thinking, he was going to remain the Bulls' best player and first option despite having DeMar DeRozan is why I had to bump him down a grade. Surprisingly, the Discord kind of agreed, giving Zach 55 A's and 41 B's. I actually thought Zach was going to get way more A's because in general, I feel like I'm a bit of a minority in my views on Zach LaVine, but looks like a lot of you were on the fence in between giving him an A or a B. Next, let's do Nikola Vucevic, and boy, do I need to hustle through some of these, otherwise this video is going to go on and on. So for Vuce, I mean, we've said it before, a disappointing season. For the expectations that we had of Vuce, he definitely did not meet them. With how inconsistent he was, the fact that he had one of the worst shooting seasons of his career, and again, the fact that we traded so much to get him because we were expecting to get the all-star Nikola Vucevic in return. The guy that was putting up 25 and 12 in Orlando, that's what we expected to get in Chicago. Granted, we knew his numbers were likely going to dip this season when he's playing with guys like LaVine and DeRozan who are going to be taking the bulk of the shots. And yes, I do think the roster construction wasn't really ideal for Vucevic because he needs to be surrounded by strong defenders and a rim protector, which the Bulls didn't have for a good portion of the season with Lonzo, Caruso, and Patrick Williams being out. And Vucevic wasn't really utilized to his strengths in feeding him in the post, and you saw him settling a lot for outside shots. But the fact of the matter is, Vucevic underperformed as a whole this season. Still a solid season. I mean, the guy averaged double-double on 17.6 points per game and 11 rebounds per game, but he underperformed to his expectations being an all-star that we saw last year. I gave Vucevic a B, which for the most part, in the Discord, you guys agreed with me as well. 75 Bs, 3 As, and 18 Cs. A lot of Cs. But I can't really say that I'm surprised or mad for that matter for those who gave him a C because of how frustrating his play was sometimes this season. And I said all season long, Vucevic was the X factor of this team to truly make them great, and he was on and off all season. That inconsistency didn't allow for the Bulls to truly make a good run to close out the season and being competitive in the playoffs. Next, let's do Patrick Williams. Hard to give Pat a grade when he barely played this season, even less than Lonzo. What was encouraging was Pat's progress that he made towards the end of the year, looking more and more confident with every passing game, being more aggressive on the offensive end, and in general looking more comfortable and not shying away from using his skills and talent in the game. I gave Pat a B, which yes, I realize isn't really fair since I was harping on Lonzo and his availability when Pat played all but 16 games all year, but my expectations of Patrick Williams being 20 years old are much less than someone like Lonzo, who was just given a big contract. Discord felt similarly, actually. 78 Bs, 4 As, and 13 Cs, and 1 F. Clearly, the 1 F is just a straight-up hater. You can't give Patrick Williams an F for this season. Let's do Alex Caruso, who we all know is a fan favorite for his hustle and energy, his high IQ, the value he brings on the court through all the intangibles that he provides. Him getting injured after that garbage foul on Grayson Allen really derailed the season and was a big loss for the Bulls, especially when Lonzo Ball was already out of the lineup. I don't see how you can't give Caruso an A, which you see in the Discord similar results, 91 A's and a few B's, which I also get because, he did miss a lot of time, and when he did come back from his injury, he wasn't the same player offensively. Let's do Coby White next. I've always said he's one of the more polarizing players on this Bulls roster among Bulls fans, as you have some who will defend Coby to no end, thinking he's a future star, and then on the other end of the spectrum who think that he's trash and needs to be traded ASAP. I've always kind of been in the middle on that, on Coby, partially because he's still so young, and I think he does still have a lot of potential. But I'm starting to lean more on the trade Coby side now. The guy is just way too inconsistent of a player with his shooting. He's not a good defender. He's not a smart player. And the Bulls already have too many guards as it is. Even though we knew that Coby was going to be losing his starting job once the Bulls signed Lonzo Ball, the expectation was that Coby, once he got back from his injury, would be that scoring spark off of the bench. He would be the Bulls' sixth man and weapon off the bench because really Coby was going to be the only true scorer in that second unit. And he never really showed up as that player outside of a few games here and there, and even lost minutes and a potential starting spot after Lonzo Ball went down to a second-round pick rookie in Ayo Dosunmu. As such, I had to give Coby a C. Most of you felt the same way with 41 C's, 20 B's. We actually had 31 D's and 6 F's. Guess you guys were a little more critical of Coby White than I was. Let's follow Coby up with Ayo Dosunmu. Now for Ayo, I mean, relative to his expectations, he certainly exceeded what most people thought was going to be a guy coming into the league as a rookie and playing on a team loaded with talent and a full backcourt. I've said before, I didn't think Ayo was going to be getting much playing time this season in general, but he really took advantage of the Bulls being shorthanded and showed up very well, very mature, very confident, and played great on both ends of the floor. And for being a rookie doing all of this was incredible. Also, because Ayo was a second-round pick and was one of the top rookies this season, I don't see how you can't give him an A, which is what you guys felt as well in the Discord. 74 A's for Ayo as well as 22 B's. I can't be too mad for those that gave a B since he did hit a bit of a rookie wall and he obviously has a lot of room of improvement, but you have to be pleased with the potential that this kid has going forward. Next, let's do Javonte Green. You guys know I'm a huge Javonte fan. I made a video on him specifically and how he's the Bulls' most underrated player. He just knows his role. He knows what he needs to do. He does everything he's asked. A big-time hustle, an energizer. I love Javonte. I gave him an A. Discord felt somewhat the same. 43 A's, 50 B's, and 5 C's. Can't say I agree with giving Javonte a C for the season when he stepped up in a big way, taking on the starting role with Patrick Williams being out for most of the year. Next, let's do Derrick Jones Jr., another player that I'm a big fan of, although he was a bit inconsistent, but I appreciate his hustle, his effort, of course, his crazy athleticism. He knows his role as well, and also stepped up when the Bulls really needed him, when they were shorthanded in the front court and played small ball center for a guy who's only 6'5". I gave Derrick Jones Jr. a B, but most of you in the Discord felt he deserved a C, 67 C's and 27 B's, which I get it if you guys gave him a C, but I also think Billy Donovan didn't really play him as much as he could have been, keeping him out of the rotation in some games. Let's do Tristan Thompson, who joined the team after the trade deadline once he was bought out by the Pacers. Initially, I liked Tristan Thompson and his strength and effort, as well as his energy that he brought to the group, which was certainly needed. But as the season kind of wore on, his impact waned a little, and even though he was able to help crash the boards on offense, he just wasn't effective in putting it back up and was often a liability on offense because of his inability to shoot, and the Bulls would be forced to bring Vucevic back in quickly. I gave Tristan Thompson a C. Discord somewhat similar, mostly C's, 64 C's, 5 B's actually, 16 D's and 12 F's. I get it if you gave him an F because, I mean, this was a guy that we brought in off the buyout market and we thought would help a team with his size, and it just didn't really pan out. These next few I'm going to go through kind of quickly. Troy Brown Jr., I've said before, a pretty big disappointment for me. I really thought that this was the year where we would see Troy Brown Jr. take a next leap and even be the Bulls' most improved player. Because of that, I actually gave him an F, which maybe it's a little harsh, but like I said, I had higher expectations of this guy. The Discord was a little more forgiving. 24 C's, 63 D's, and only 6 F's. Tony Bradley, I gave him a D. I mean, really because I had no expectations of the guy, and he was pretty meh. I had some nice games here and there, but overall was disappointing. In the Discord, he received 8 C's, 57 D's, and 28 F's. Marko Simonovic, I mean, the guy barely played all season. It was clear he wasn't NBA ready, played a lot of G League, only played for the Bulls in garbage time. I gave him an F. And then finally Matt Thomas, I mean, a couple of good games shooting here and there, but no, Matt Thomas really wasn't impactful at all for the Bulls. I gave him an F. Most of you in the Discord felt the same, with 61 F's and 23 D's. Of course, you have the trolls as well, who gave him 6 A's. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I know I went through some of those relatively quickly at the end, but those are my grades for the Bulls roster this season. I'm curious to know what your guys' grades are for each player and how they differ from mine. Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.